Hey, this is Allen Robinson from the Jacksonville Jaguars, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome to the show. Jason's here.
Yes, so you know it's going to be a great show.
Mike is present.
Hey, everybody. Hey, well, hello.
The truth shall come forth once again.
Wait, Paul Pierce is here?
No. The truth is, I had some Chicago-style deep dish last night.
Oh, you go to Gio's?
I went to Gio's, and you know what I left with? A full belly and a little bit of sadness for the servers at that place. Because those tables don't turn over when you wait 45 minutes for a pizza.
Well, but, I mean, the price of that pizza is padded.
You know, we got out of there a family of 5. How much do you think I spent?
I'm going to go.
And we had
family of
tiramisu,
5.
and we had.
What kind of pizza did you get? Just cheese?
No, we went with a Mighty Meaty or whatever it's called.
Okay.
And a classic. We got 2 large pizzas.
Then, like 60 bones?
$39 after tip.
What?
Yeah. Because we split it.
It was cheating.
We split it 3 ways.
Oh,
it was about $100.
Well done.
I'm just saying.
Well done.
Now you know.
No, that's not.
I mean,
that's not too bad. Also, Chicago, in your face. We got our own Giordano's.
It's kind of in our face because Chicago came here.
Yeah, but now they can't be like, we got all the best pizza. Say what we got it too.
Anyway, pizza. Breaking news. Delicious. Very good.
It's not good for the year of health, my man.
No. That's why I had a salad for lunch. I prepped up. All right, welcome to the show. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. We've got a lot of stuff going on this offseason, including articles from our writers on the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, which is where the quick question for today comes from. By the way, today we are doing the second half of the Running Back Truth episode, breaking down a number of running backs that finished, between 11 and 25 and some other names. We'll talk about how consistent they were, if some of their stat lines at the end of the year were indicative of what's to come in 2017 or not. So I'm excited. But the quick question, look, the writing staff apparently listens to the show.
That's good.
That's very good.
They heard the first episode, and they put together a little poll, and they basically ranked the top 5 running backs for 2017. And so, now that we've heard the truth in on the Tuesday episode, do we disagree or agree with their top 5 for 2017?
Their top 5. You want me to read it?
Go for it.
It goes Le'Veon Bell as the numero uno, followed by David Johnson and Ezekiel Elliott. The 4th slot is LaShawn McCoy, and number 5, Melvin Gordon.
Ooh.
So what's interesting is that nobody in the writing staff put Zeke number 1. Only David Johnson and Lev Bell had 1 rankings on anybody's ballot. Apparently, Melvin Gordon was unranked on some. And so there were others that received a top 5 vote: Devonta Freeman, Lamar Miller, DeMarco Murray, and Jordan Howard. So,
man, I can tell you,
I can't debate 1 and 2.
No,
or 3.
Yeah, one through 3 is just put them in the Yahtzee cup, shake them around, throw them out.
Doesn't matter.
4 and 5.
I'll take all 3, please. 2 for 1.
Neither of those guys.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Quick aside. If you could get 2 of those,
that'd be.
We need Lev Bell to get another 3-4 game suspension. Lev, if you're out there, you're friendly.
Well, the problem is it's not going to be 3 or 4 games this time.
Look, hey,
it would.
Hey, wait.
It would be 4.
Who's playing this weekend?
Steelers, Patriots.
Oh, you mean LeGarrette Blunt and Le'Veon Bell
the reunion.
They can get back together?
Go for a little car ride?
Maybe Josh and Martavis are not busy? All right, that's not funny. Or is it? All right. Let's move on. LaShawn McCoy and Melvin Gordon, do you agree with those as 4 or 5? I do not agree with McCoy. I said this on the last show. But when I look at the names to replace him with, Devonta Freeman and DeMarco Murray are my only temptations for the 4 spot.
Those are my 2 that would be my 4 and 5. Yeah. I would rather have Freeman and Murray over both
Shady and Gordon. However, I make no complaints if you want to mix up. I mean, that's another one where I would say you could throw in Jordan Howard and Lamar Miller into that group personally, and whoever you like the best.
News broke yesterday that Bill O'Brien's going to be calling plays for Houston in 2017. Interesting, certainly, for Lamar and that type of situation. Let me ask you this: where do you see Arian Foster this year? Huh? Top 10?
Top 10 couch potatoes.
All right. Any other thoughts?
And Gordon is going to be so incredibly polarizing this offseason for me. And I mean, it all really depends on what San Diego does. Do they bring Woodhead back? Do they draft a running back in the top 4 rounds? That kind of a thing.
I like Gordon.
Yeah, I know you love him. I don't know. He's not an automatic top 5 for me. But if the situation where they don't really do anything, let's say they bring back Oliver, they don't really bring anyone back with the coaching change of getting Buffalo's running back coach. I mean, that sounds like good news for Melvin.
News and notes from around the league.
You guys have anything new on Jordy Nelson this morning? Yesterday it was reported by ESPN's Rob Demovsky that he is a long shot.
I like Tuesdays. We've got hope. Oh, now he's a long shot.
Yeah, it's the way it works.
It escalated quickly.
Davante Adams, though, with the sprained ankle.
That's the big news.
Won't practice till Saturday. I think he'll play.
Well, the last thing I had read is that they think that the injury is pretty serious to Davante Adams, to his ankle. And if you recall, during Davante Adams' sophomore year when he was the stinky cheese, he had sprained his ankle severely at the beginning of the season and then was hampered by it all year.
Geronimo Allison also sat out Wednesday's practice with a hamstring issue. He's expected to play, but
my name is Jeff.
You're Jeff Janis. Oh my goodness!
Jeff Janis wasn't even out there when Adams went out with the ankle.
I know.
I mean, they were picking. I saw McCarthy actually turned around. He grabbed a guy from the third row, suited him up, and said,
"You can wear Janis's."
Like he pointed, and Janis like, "Me? I'm going in
behind you."
Scoot the water boy. Put him in.
He asked Janis to help him put on his pads, just for insult.
Janis, get it together, man.
Yeah. So, what is this news about Andrew Luck?
He just had it broke this morning that apparently he had a shoulder surgery. Old Jim Irsay himself tweeted this one out. It's a successful outpatient surgery, but he should be ready to go for the season.
That's not my fault after all the stuff I said about him yesterday, is it?
Well, people don't know what you said yesterday, my friend.
Oh.
That's funny.
We pre-recorded the shows for next week because we're at the Fantasy Sports Trade Association in Nashville. So yesterday is next week.
What I'm saying on next Tuesday.
The Jags did not select Chip Kelly to be their offensive coordinator, sticking with, it's Nathaniel Hackett.
Can he hack it?
I doubt it. I doubt it. Any other thoughts? By the way, we talk all about these coaching changes. It's worth mentioning. We'll have a coaching changes episode where we highlight all the movement at both the head coach and coordinator positions of significance. That affects fantasy players, obviously, in a significant way. You know, you see what Kyle Shanahan was able to do over the last couple of years in Atlanta, building that offense up. You have Mike McCoy going back to Denver. You have a lot of different situations worth monitoring.
The aforementioned Anthony Lynn from Buffalo, who has been a running back coach forever and saw LaShawn McCoy have just an absolute monster. And not just LaShawn McCoy. I mean, Mike Gillislee. The entire running system for Buffalo was tremendous last year.
Dynamite, as they say.
Yes.
Don't they?
Yeah.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Now, Jason is going to be joining us soon. Right now, he's in the middle of a game of Minesweeper.
Oh, I'm doing so good!
Did you know how to play that game?
No.
I did. I love that
That's
game.
funny you said that. I never comprehended
I
it.
had one of my buddies, shout out to Chris, who was just freaking amazing at Minesweeper. And
never got it.
I know. I would just click.
Oh, I love that
It
game.
was like a magic eye puzzle I could never see.
Jason liked it because he set it to giant grid with one mine.
Yeah.
I know how you play
and then
games.
dominated.
I could beat the expert. Idiot savant, man.
Yeah. All right. The truth about fantasy running backs. We broke down the top 10 running backs on Tuesday's episode. We'll not be rehashing them today, so go back and listen to that episode. That was actually Tuesday, right, Mike?
I believe so.
Yes, it was.
All time is.
I believe so.
All right, number 11, Ajayi, drafted outside the top 100 in standard and PPR leagues last year. Ended up the number 11 overall fantasy running back, 15 games, 1,300 yards. I mean, that's impressive.
That is very nice.
Consistency rating of 5.
Which is really surprising considering.
Didn't seem that way.
It did not seem that way. This from the that 25 stats article up on the Fantasy Footballers is great. You know about Ajayi's 3 monster games where he went over 200 yards and most likely won somebody's fantasy weeks. Those 3 games were 49% of his yardage on the ground. He only averaged 54 yards per game in his other 12 starts. And who does that remind you of? Who had a 3-game monster stretch and people were saying
Davante Freeman.
That's right. Everyone was saying, Davante Freeman, he just did it in those 3 games. The rest of the time he wasn't that good. So moving forward next year, you think he's going to be as
He's going to be all right. If he has the role, he's going to be all right. I mean, you have 0 performances by him that were outside, into the bust range. He had 9 top 25 performances, not just the 3 big games. He's a low-end 1-2 type of guy for me. I still think they don't love him.
That's my worry with him.
The thing is I don't really hold, I didn't hold it against Devonta Freeman, that the weight of those games was, I mean, look, if you have 200 yards, 200, 300 yards in a game, it's going to take up a lot of a high percentage of your yardage, no matter who you are.
Yeah, but
how about the fact he had 3 monster games?
It's not just a percentage. It's looking at his other 12 starts, he averaged 54 yards.
Yeah.
The nice thing is,
I mean, but that's not awful.
That's pretty bad. For if you're talking fantasy where he would be drafted, if you draft Ajayi with his ADP and he's giving you 54 yards a game, that's bad.
That would be bad. Thankfully he got 8 touchdowns rushing.
54 yards a game is about 860 for the season.
Yeah,
but then you had those other huge games. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's not the end of the world to me that he, outside of his 3, I just don't like that narrative. I don't. Other than his great games, he was bad. I mean, that's the story to me when you say something like that.
Well,
but he ended up the 5th.
I mean, if you want to chase that narrative, that you're saying other than 3 games he was good, 12 games he was meh.
No. Just because he averaged 54 yards doesn't mean 12 games he was meh. He had games that he wasn't great in, and he had games where he scored in, and he had multiple scores in.
Right.
It's not like every game other than the 3, he went out there and put up exactly 54 yards and 0.3 touchdowns. He had games where he won you weeks, and clearly 5th most consistent running back at the position regardless of that situation.
Yeah, the reason why is he had several of his low yardage games. Week 3 he had 28 yards, but he got a touchdown. He had 42 yards a couple weeks later, but he got a touchdown, and 45 and got a touchdown. And so, he had some of his they coincided where his low yardage games – He scored, and so his consistency was actually pretty good.
I mean, Melvin Gordon had 3 games over 100 yards on the season. And we look at Melvin Gordon, we say, hey, look at the season he had. Look how he carried people with the touchdowns, yardage games.
Ajayi had 4.
Right. Other than Zeke, David Johnson, and Lev Bell, this is called playing running back to me. I mean, defenses, who you're playing. I'm impressed with Ajayi's season. I'm not the biggest fan of Ajayi long term, but he proved me wrong this year.
My only point was versus where people will draft.
Well, let's look at how he played against top defenses and bottom defenses. Ajayi, about 12 points a game against the top defenses, 74 rushing yards a game. Against bottom 16, he was at 105 yards per game. That was 5 games. So if you look at this year, 10 of his 15 games played were against top 16 rushing defenses. So that's impressive to me. When you play twice as many games against difficult rushing defenses, still perform, I'm impressed with that too.
So here we'll run through just a couple names of the early, because what I'm talking about is on Fantasy Football Calculator, the latest mock draft, he's the 8th running back taken off the board in the second round, which is fun. I mean, running backs are going early once again. But Ajayi or Carlos Hyde.
I would take Ajayi.
Yeah, I'll go Hyde.
Ajayi or Lamar Miller.
I'll take Lamar Miller.
As would I.
Ingram.
I mean, that's going to depend.
You know what's? It's crazy because I just haven't handed Ajayi the starting job in my head.
That's what I was just going to say. It depends on.
I guess if you hand him the starting job,
yeah, let's say he's the starter.
Yeah, that's close. I'll probably take Ingram in a PPR and Ajayi in a standard.
And the last one, Latavius, assuming he's back in Oakland.
I guess I'll take Ajayi. That's yeah. I mean, those are good questions.
He's going to be a tough guy to get a handle on.
Let's talk about Frank Gore, number 12 on this list, because
are we talking about next year or this year?
Oh, last year too. Frank Gore, always there.
He needs to change his number to number 12.
I feel like all of the running back ones walk into the room, and then he pokes out from back behind the group and says, "Hey guys," and then they're like, "Frank, who let you in?" And he's like, I'm number 12.
It's like, this is my house.
This is where I
this
built it.
This is where I live. You guys are.
I was hosting this party, fellas,
before you were born.
Yeah, pretty much. 16 games, 263 carries, over 1,000 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Obviously, it was a year in which the offensive line struggled immensely, yet he still got it done. I think he's the least sexy player to own.
Yeah.
Maybe out of the top 24 running backs.
You never have faith that you're going to get a boom game from
and
Frank
you don't.
Gore.
He only had 1 top 5 game on the year, but he didn't bust, and he had 12 top 25 games. So
if 12 weeks you've got basically an RB2 or better, where you draft Frank Gore allows you. I mean, you're going to be able to have him. You're going to have a whole team of solid draft picks before you can then draft your RB2 or better late. I mean, Frank Gore is always great, and I don't see a reason for that to change, barring them going out.
He'll be 34 years old next year.
That's
like when the draft starts, he'll be 34.
That is
I mean, when the league starts, yeah.
Is there any chance he just straight retires?
I would say there is.
I don't know about that.
They need help at the running back
yes,
position.
Yes, they do.
Their backups are, sorry, Robert Turbin. I think that they need help, so they will probably go out and draft another wide receiver.
Well, Bobby Turbin's a free agent, so he will probably not be there.
All right. Anything else about Frank Gore? 8th most consistent player. We talked about how many no bust games. He just if he could be a 2, I'll take him as a 2.
At top versus top and bottom defenses, he's relatively the same. He's Frank Gore.
He's
steady.
Frank Gore. Drafted in the 6th round last year?
Oh, he was drafted in 1988.
Yeah.
Frank Gore.
Yep. Latavius Murray came in at number 13. Missed a couple games during this season. Had 195 carries, 788 yards, and then Bladow, 12 touchdowns. So he basically offset the fears of the Jalen Richard and DeAndre Washington platoon by scoring. And so that does give me pause and concern because you have both Richard and Washington coming into their second year. You have Murray, who did see a massively reduced workload when you talk about total carries on the year. I'm curious, do you guys have his beginning and end of year splits? Maybe we should look at.
I have his game log in front of me.
Sure.
Where, it's really good. So through week 14, he in our half point scoring format, he had under 10 points just once, assuming you don't count the games he did not play against him, which I will not do that. But he only scored 4 points against Baltimore. He was 8 for 19 on the ground. But other than that, double digits, man, double digits. And then it really slowed down at the end of the year. The last 3 weeks, he was single digits.
What I would say about Latavius Murray is more about the Raiders themselves. The Raiders are a phenomenal running team.
Phenomenal.
The problem is there's 3 running backs there that were all actively involved. Obviously, they did not have a top 12 PPR running back, but as a team, compared to other teams, they were the 5th most fantasy points among all NFL teams at the running back position. So I think hopefully next year they can kind of figure out.
Well, Latavius is a free agent. We don't know that he's going to be back with Oakland.
That's going to be one of the more interesting situations this
I
offseason.
wouldn't pay them. I wouldn't pay him.
I don't think they will. I think that he will be moving on.
Yeah.
And then D-Wash and Rashard will hold it down.
If that's the case,
That's exciting.
and they had the 5th most fantasy points, it reminds me of like, the Saints for a couple years.
Right.
Pretty much led the league in rushing, but it was shared.
Yeah.
It was shared across Sproles and Bush and maybe even McAllister back in the day.
And Robinson and Pierre Thomas.
Yeah. So,
It was a carousel.
the offensive line produces fantasy points. And so if Latavius leaves, we'll be talking about where to take Washington, where to take Rashard in next year's draft. So, Murray, a lot of question marks.
Yes.
But definitely got it done in the end zone. All right, before we move on and talk about Isaiah Crowell, I want to thank today's sponsor, Blue Apron. Look, I love the meat, all right? And I love that Blue Apron, their beef raised humanely, chicken's free range, pork raised naturally. The meals they send, delicious, absolutely great. And look, I love Blue Apron because they ship the exact amount of ingredients required for a recipe. We don't have a bunch of food waste. I don't have to wonder and measure and do things that I'm incapable of doing. They make it easy to eat delicious food. Research shows that Blue Apron families cook nearly 3 times more often, and I love the way that fresh plate of food looks on the table. When we get done, we get to try different things. It's awesome. Some examples, you got some seared pork chops with farro and cranberry chutney. You got spaghetti squash and marinara with mushroom and garlic knots. You got spicy shrimp, Korean rice cakes with cabbage and furikake. It's good stuff. And we just got 3 more meals here at the Holloway household yesterday. Looking forward to eating those this week. So check out this week's menu. Get your first 3 meals for free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/ballers. That's blueapron.com/ballers. You love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron. So do not wait. That's blueapron.com/ballers. Blue Apron is a better way to cook. Isaiah Crowell. Number 14. Yeah, you're talking about eating crow, right? Isaiah Crowell came in at number 14. If maybe he's less sexy to play than Frank Gore. Maybe that's the actual.
Yes, he definitely is.
198 carries, 7 touchdowns.
His offense is far worse.
Give me
Colts offense.
You need fantasy vegetables. Mike is.
Yes.
We've talked about this before. Frank Gore, Isaiah Crowell was a vegetable this year, without question. I'd argue that Latavius Murray this year was less, not a sexy food. He was a cabbage, a cabbage of touchdowns. These are guys I love as the 2. You know what I mean? I love those as my number 2 running back. I don't know if I love Isaiah Crowell.
Yeah, I was just gonna say
but he ended up here.
I would not have liked Isaiah Crowell as my running back 2 or even 3. It was very hard to play, very hard to start.
But
because
10
while
top
he
25
did have
games.
Exactly, he had a lot of big blow up games. It was very hard to predict those. They bizarrely, all of a sudden this year he became a pass catching back, where in a PPR league Isaiah Crowell was even more valuable, and he had never really done that before.
You had Duke Johnson, and he was the hotness. He was the PPR hotness last offseason.
Every 3rd game they had a change of quarterback, which just always, it's like, okay, he caught 6 passes last week. Maybe he's going to do this. And then it's like, oh, well, there's a new quarterback. It was just very difficult. And I expect going forward next year, I don't see why the Cleveland Browns situation is going to be any less difficult to predict. So I'm just saying he's a hard guy to put your trust in.
7 of 16 games in single digits.
Exactly.
He's also a restricted free agent, so he may or may not be back with the Cleveland Browns.
Carlos Hyde comes in at number 15. Last year was drafted very high. 37 was the ADP in standard leagues, 42 in PPR leagues. It was a weird year for Carlos Hyde. I think it was a year that, for those that are truthers, he gave you enough to make you think, okay, all right, well, maybe next year. For those of you that doubted him, he gave you enough ammo to say, all right, can't stay healthy, can't do enough. the offense, the team. He was Carlos Hyde.
The problem now is that Chip Kelly is gone, and the way that Chip Kelly ran that offense and focused on playing fast and got the running backs heavily involved, Carlos Hyde takes a hit to me with that system.
Does
leaving.
he?
Yeah, he does.
Even if it's Kyle Shanahan?
Carlos Hyde's running style, I feel like, matched the style of running that Chip Kelly did better. You came into this year talking about facing nickel coverage and how good Carlos Hyde was at that, and Chip Kelly's teams usually face the most nickel coverage. Things like that are going to change.
Yeah, Carlos Hyde was really, really good during a couple spurts during the year. Like, really good.
Yeah, the first 5 weeks of the season, he was on fire.
And then weeks 11 through 14, on fire again. But
it was basically injuries.
Yeah, he had lulls in between there. So, can he stay healthy?
Yeah,
he's proven that he can't do that yet.
The health is the biggest question for me. The Carlos Hyde's talent, there is zero questions for me. I think he's an excellent, excellent running back. And Kyle Shanahan, I know I'm talking about him a lot lately, but look what his running backs have done in the past. Look what they're doing right now. You remember Alfred Morris in Washington? That was Kyle Shanahan. And you look at Tevin Coleman, what he's doing right now. You look at Davante Freeman. So it's just Kyle Shanahan runs a very friendly running back system, and so that if K-Shy moves over to San Francisco, there is zero hit to me for what Carlos Hyde did last year.
Good news, guys. Brandon Marshall is not open to taking a pay cut.
Oh yeah, you didn't hear that?
Well, he's cut.
Yeah, he's going to be open to taking a regular cut.
Yeah.
I
don't know if he's open to it. I mean, they're just going to.
Andy just looked up saying,
no.
You know what Andy's eyes just said?
I don't think it's a guarantee he's cut.
I think
it's like $7.5 million. I don't think that he's necessarily going to be cut.
I agree.
Why would you cut? I mean, that's a pretty good. That's all right.
But I think there's a good chance that he gets cut. But Andy's eyes looked up and said, "The Cardinals are calling. Carson is a step up from Fitzpatrick."
If John Brown's health isn't going to be there,
we already lost Michael Floyd.
I'll take him.
It's not just Brown. I mean, it's Jerron Brown as well.
You ready? ACL. Are you ready for Brandon Marshall in New England? Are you ready for that?
Everyone's going to New England.
All right, Spencer Ware. Spencer Ware, number 16, half-point ranking, drafted very late. Obviously, we all thought
he was
Jamal
drafted
Charles,
as a handcuff.
Yeah, we all thought Jamal Charles would be able to get back on the field and perform based on how he had recovered from previous injury. Did not come to fruition for Jamal Charles. Spencer Ware, to be honest, thought it would be a better season for Spencer Ware with the amount of work he got. 214 carries, 922 yards, only 3 touchdowns. Really did not impress me as the season wore on, and it made you wonder if Spencer Ware wore down. That's what I kind of took away from it. Burned bright early. Didn't seem to be somebody that could take advantage of bad matchups, or in his case, good matchups.
Right.
That's how he can. Is that the feeling you guys have? I mean, what if he is the bell cow in Kansas City next year? Still saw him. He acquiesced a lot of work to Char West. What is Spencer Ware?
Man, he is also very difficult, especially when you throw in the variable of Jamal Charles. But let's say Jamal Charles is gone. I think Spencer Ware is still a fine running back too. I mean, he had the narrative to me is that he wore down. That's what I feel like happened too. He wore down. But if you look at his actual performances, I mean, he had some pretty strong games here at the end.
He had a couple games this year, where he had these games where you get 20 carries and still end up with like 8 fantasy points. Only scored 3 times.
Yeah, the touchdowns were a disaster.
That's an anomaly to me. If you're the bell cow in Kansas City, receiving 3 total rushing touchdowns, I think that would return to a higher number.
Right. Well, let's say, and if you gave him, just 8, I think 8 is not a crazy number. If he had scored 5 more touchdowns, I haven't done the math, but he's probably ends up as a running back 1.
Well, you're speaking on the ground, right? Because he also, I believe,
yes, I'm talking about rushing.
2 touchdowns.
Yeah,
so
I'm speaking rushing only.
Okay.
Yeah. He was about the same against top and bottom half defenses. He only had one top 5 performance, and he did not really bust for you. He had 9 top 25 games.
I think he's all right. I don't think Spencer Ware is a Carlos Hyde level talent. You've got a system here that's always produced a good running back, even going back to Philadelphia. And granted, those are more talented guys, right? I mean, Shady and Jamal Charles are extremely talented, but I would expect Spencer Ware to be able to do more with what he's been given. And if Jamal Charles
we
can't
need to
get
talk
back,
about Jamal Charles.
Yeah.
That's the story here. We need to talk about him because he's only 30 years old. He'll be 30.
Only? That's pretty old for a running back.
We just talked about Frank Gore.
Frank Gore is an anomaly.
He can't be the gold standard.
What I mean is he did not play. He's had a couple of full missed seasons. He was also playing behind people in the early part of his career. And I think Jamal Charles can come back.
Yeah, I think he can come back, but can he come back to being Jamal Charles?
Answer the question. I don't know.
I don't know. It was more of rhetorical.
I'm skeptical. I think
he basically hasn't played for 2 years.
Right.
So that's the problem. But if he's back in Kansas City, it's going to impact Ware and West, and everybody may suffer from that. So I'm curious where Jamal Charles will go.
I'm curious to see if they draft a running back or sign a, that will be indicative to me of what they think of Jamal Charles going forward.
Jamal Charles, just to throw it out there, like we said, 30 years old, basically has not played for the last 2 years. He is owed $7 million.
Yeah, they could move on.
That is a hefty running back price, and they can cut him with no dead cap.
Yeah.
So
here was the thing about Spencer Ware that disappointed me. He rushed for 10 or more yards, right, on 2% of his carries, is what I'm reading here.
Yeah.
So he just did not have as many big plays. Let's move on.
To the real show.
All right.
The main event.
Oh, goodness.
Number 17 drafted
the winner
super high.
Winner of the Poopiest Pants Award footy. Which that thing's probably still in the mail.
Still in the mail. Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley drafted at number 3, and he came in as the 17th best running back. And here is a beautiful stat nugget from our 25 stat article, which you can find on fantasyfootballers.com. Todd Gurley had the highest percentage of any team's total red zone targets, 78
carries.
Yes, 78.7% of the LA Rams red zone carries went to Todd Gurley, and he still finishes the 17th best running back. I mean, you can't ask for more than being the highest used red zone weapon in the league.
Caught 43 passes. How many touchdowns?
How many touchdowns
through
did he
the
get?
air?
Oh, 0.
Yeah, 0.
That's a 0. But to his credit, that 58 targets to Todd Gurley, that's what we want to see. That I had great concerns for Todd Gurley in his workload in that portion of the game, since they didn't really use him like that his rookie year. They didn't use him like that the first couple weeks with Jeff Fisher's insistence on Benny Cunningham being in on third down. But it did turn around. So I'm not completely bailing on Todd Gurley.
What is he under Sean McVay?
Oh, man. I mean, similar.
Like, do you expect that kind of a workload?
I would. I don't know what else are you going to do. What are the Rams going to do? I mean, you're going to lose Kenny Brett most likely. You have Jared Goff still not really showing anything. You don't have your greatest weapon then is Tavon Austin, which are as in your depth chart of weapons. So it's just to me, you got to give Todd Gurley those close to 300 touches.
So is Todd Gurley? I think the real question here, right? Because look, they had a putrid offense this season, but they also had for the majority of the season a head coach who was fine just going punt, and just old school run.
I don't think he wanted to go punt.
No. But my point is, he was okay being a defensive team, low scoring. Like, he wasn't trying to scheme things up and be aggressive offensively and do things like in today's NFL that helps fantasy football players because they're on a higher powered offense.
He was more of a yesterday's NFL.
So the question is, Todd Gurley comes out of college. He's unbelievably talented. He's the next Adrian Peterson. He comes out rookie year, and he's great. This year, the film, not just the stats, but the film did not look good for me when I watched Todd Gurley. He didn't look anything special whatsoever.
Couldn't break big plays.
Never. I mean, he didn't run away from anybody. He just didn't look special to me. So the question, because he had a lot of work in college, is this a Trent Richardson type of situation where, look, he was great in college and he had a good rookie season, but maybe he's not going to get back to that high hope? Or was this season the outlier, the aberration? I mean, which way do you lean based on your film and what you see as the future of the Rams?
I think he's a really, really talented player. And so I lean the direction of, look, his rookie year wasn't just touchdown dependency.
No,
he was
amazing.
But you compare him to like Trent Richardson's rookie year, he didn't break 1,000 yards, and it was touchdown dependent. I think if I had to pick a side, look, I know this season will answer it. You've got a different head coach. You're going to have a different opportunity. If he does this for 2 straight years, I mean, it's not good. Lowest yards per carry in the league, lowest average yards, all-purpose yards per touch. It was a bad year.
46 rushing yards a game against top 16 defenses.
No, I mean,
that is just brutal.
And the truth is, the only way this doesn't get answered this year, I guess, is if they don't have a quarterback.
Well, they have one. They know who it is.
Do not. But it's okay, guys. They brought in Greg Olson with an O, to be the quarterback's coach. I mean, this is a guy who's got 20 years of professional experience.
He does
at quarterback coach or head coach
Did they really bring
Greg
Olson in?
Yeah.
He's a former Arizona State offensive coordinator that I despised.
Oh, well, why would you despise him?
He wasn't any good.
Yeah. Oh, here's a great stat. So he has been the quarterback's coach or the offensive coordinator in the NFL for basically the last almost 20 years. He's bounced around from team to team somehow. In the last decade, how many times would you say he has had let's just say top half, like just better than, the top 15 offenses in the league? I mean, in theory, it should be at least 50% if you just – I mean, we're just talking top half, not top 10, not top 5.
This is not trending well.
It would be once, and it was last year with the Jacksonville Jaguars and Blake Bortles' crazy touchdown number. Other than that, every other year has been bottom half of the league. So the savior is here. Jared Goff, you're going to be just fine.
Todd Gurley, where does he go next year? Where does he belong? He was obviously, he's the number 3 player off the board this year. Disappointed, destroyed fantasy owners. You'll have a level of optimism. Some people think he'll bounce back. I don't think he will. I think he's either going to disappoint or surprise.
I think
he's just going to be one of those.
I think he'll be drafted as about the 8th.
Yeah. Well, I guess I don't think he will play to his draft position. Is
Right.
what I meant. He will either disappoint from his draft position.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to.
Well, maybe, because I think he'll go in the second round.
See, I think he'll be about the 8th running back taken, which could put him in the second round. Back
Would you take him as the 8th running back?
I would not, and I expect that he will not finish. I think I lean more towards not the Trent Richardson side. That's hyperbolic, but I lean more towards he is not a RB1 next year.
I am. That's where I lean.
Todd Gurley. And you look at the names above him in this ranking, though. I mean, you would draft him over Gore, Latavius, Crowell, Hyde, and Ware.
Yep. Well, no. Maybe not Carlos Hyde. That one would be close. But
Over
yes,
Ajayi?
the others.
No
I
way.
would rather have Ajayi.
Yeah.
Lamar Miller came in at number 18. The guy, Lamar Miller had one of those years where he seemed like he was hurt through half of it, but only missed 2 games. Kind of played through a lot of injury.
Yep.
He was the 11th most consistent fantasy running back. When you talk about top performances, didn't really bust for you when he played, had 10 top 25 games, played a lot better against bottom half defenses, which makes a ton of sense to me because you get those top half defenses, you're putting Brock Osweiler on the spot, and you're basically saying, Brock needs to beat me. Big yardage difference, 58 yards a game against top 16 versus 95 against bottom 16.
Woo! I think Lamar Miller was fine. I mean, he finishes the 16th best running back, but he missed the last 2 games of the season.
18th best running back.
Well, depending on scoring format, yes, 18th in standard, 16th in half point. But he missed the last 2 games of the season. It's hard to run when you're quarterback. I mean, ask the former player
Todd
Gurley how it is when you run when your quarterback is atrocious. I believe Bill O'Brien calling the plays this next year is going to improve the offense. I think he was frustrated with their vanilla play calling. I mean, that's
Isn't it interesting when you have situations like Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman, right? Deion Lewis and LeGarrette Blount. Great offenses, shared backfields. Then you have situations like Todd Gurley and Lamar Miller. Troubled offenses, full opportunity. And we talk so much in the offseason about, okay, it's that balance of opportunity.
Yeah.
What would you rather have? Would you rather be playing the coin flip of is it a Lewis or Blount game, or would you rather play the coin flip of, oh, no, are they going to shut down the running game because that's all we have in Houston or L.A.?
I think I would personally. I lean more towards the workhorse, the Todd Gurley or the Lamar Miller, because I'm not going to be drafting any of those guys as my one, my RB1. Like that's. I don't see Lamar Miller, Todd Gurley, Deion Lewis.
You don't see Lamar Miller as a one?
I'm saying as like he might be in my top 12 running backs next year, but I'm hoping that he is my second running back on my roster. If I can grab him in the second round and go running back to start is an example. But my point is that second running back on my roster, I want more assurity. I want more, look at Todd Gurley. We're so disappointed with Todd Gurley's year, but, in truth, he didn't crap people's teams. He got enough yards and enough carries and enough involvement in the passing game to where he disappointed you greatly, but it wasn't like he was putting up 2s for fantasy points, whereas Deion Lewis can come out and just like, oh, you're not involved this game because Uncle Billy.
Uncle Billy?
That's Bill Belichick's my uncle.
Oh.
You see Bill Belichick high-five Amendola on that play?
No.
I heard about it.
It was pretty cool.
Emotion?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He had some. All right, Tevin Coleman at number 19. In fact, you've got Coleman at 19, Bilal Powell at 21.
Blah, blah.
A couple of guys sharing time, ending up here in the top 24 at the running back position. The upside for Coleman seems to be immense. Great offense. Very effective with only 118 carries and 31 catches on the year, yet ending up at number 19.
8 touchdowns, man.
Couple of top 5 weeks, so the potential to, give you a monster game from time to time. How many touchdowns, Mike?
8 on the ground, 3 through the air. So he had 11 total touchdowns.
And he missed time. I mean, he missed week 8, 9, and 10 before returning, double digits in 7 games or 8 games.
Don't you guys think that the touchdowns, so he missed time, finished high, so you say, okay, if he comes back, plays the whole time, he's going to be a beast. Don't you feel like those touchdowns were abnormally high for his usage?
I don't. I personally don't.
You don't?
No, because that's like, when James Starks or Lacey are putting up touchdown numbers. I mean, the offense is so dynamic. It scores so many points. The amount of yardage.
Yeah, but did James Starks ever score 11 touchdowns?
No.
I can answer that without looking it up.
I think 10 touchdowns for Coleman is an okay number.
Yeah, I do too. With the frequency, I'm with Andy. They score so many points that it's not outrageous to me to say that he's going to have 10 touchdowns next year. I think the yardage is probably the same. I mean, it reminds me of Sims from last year, where you can expect 500 and 500. You're not going to get 1,000 yards rushing. But built in with Coleman, the way it was built in with Sims, why I liked him coming into this year, was if the guy in front of him goes down, you could see an absolute stud emerge.
Top 5 running.
By the way, James Starks had 9 touchdowns.
Oh,
Oof.
In your face.
In my face, I was right.
In his whole career.
Oh, yes. There you go.
But he was a poor example.
Yeah, Lacey, though.
I don't think there is a good example. I don't think there's any example. I mean, what second, string running back has ever had double-digit touchdowns, unless you want to say like LeGarrette Blount.
I was going to say LeGarrette Blount.
Deion Lewis.
I'm not talking this year. I'm talking previously.
Yeah.
Darren Sproles has done that before.
Really? Oh yeah, I guess probably his New Orleans Saints day.
Yeah.
He went crazy ham.
Yeah, just remember how wrong you are about that.
I think
about
there might
this
be one
specific
season
topic.
where Sproles.
It's certainly not the norm to have your backup, your quote unquote backup running back be getting that many touchdowns.
So in 2014, Sproles had 6 touchdowns on the ground. He's had a couple 7 touchdown passing years. Yeah,
and then you add him in. My point is just
Coleman is a frontline running back though. Like if you just gave Coleman the job, where does he go? Let's just hypothetically Davante Freeman. He's on a trip to Fiji for a year, and Coleman, you're the starting running back for the Falcons, 2017. Coleman is
top 5.
I would say
Coleman is right
6 or
behind the
7.
top 3 to me.
Yeah.
Like I would draft him 4.
Yeah, he would go extremely high. It's a guy who we're going to talk about here in a second who maybe I guess he was still the starter, but it was Hill. Jeremy Hill kind of had that situation where he's in a split backfield. Maybe he's the starter, maybe Gio is the starter, but he's a touchdown machine.
Sure.
Tevin Coleman's better than Jeremy Hill.
But
The
Tevin
thing
Coleman
is
wasn't used as a goal line back, was he? Let me look that up.
He was.
And Tevin Coleman, the thing to remember about him is they don't treat him like a second tier.
Right.
They don't treat him like a backup, right?
He gets
like
drives.
Yeah, he gets drives and he gets high stress opportunities, like important red zone drives, important plays out of the backfield. So I look at it like 1A, 1B.
Yep.
Is how they treat it. And maybe, obviously Freeman is great, but I think they think a lot of Coleman. And for him to finish 19 with 3 games that he missed.
Yeah, he's the backup.
And you talk about 11 touchdowns in 13 games. So Matt Forte, Bilal Powell, Jeremy Hill, Terrance West, and Jonathan Stewart are the remaining names on this top 24 list. Matt Forte, to me, is an interesting name for next season because the variables are all over the place. The quarterback situation, Bilal Powell's involvement, Forte's age, the contract that he signed, the kind of burned bright in the beginning, let you down, then he came back. He obviously surprised us, right? In the studio,
Yes.
Forte was a guy that we thought would succumb to the to the change in team and situation at his age. We didn't think he'd be as successful as he was. He had a few bust games, but he had a few big games. 3 top 5 performances this year. What do you guys make of him? Is he a guy that can be underdrafted this year because nobody really wants? He shares in a bad offense with Bilal Powell back there.
Yeah, I think it's very possible. In the mock draft I've mentioned on Fantasy Football Calculator, he went in the back of the 7th round. I mean, the mighty have fallen. I mean, Matt Forte was a 4th round pick last year. I think he'll go higher than that once the season comes. But I think Forte he's a guy I'll probably target because he's a decently reliable running back.
It'd be a refreshing change for you.
I doubted the change. I don't like when old running backs change teams.
No, it has not worked as often.
But he showed me that he can, and I know that the quarterback and the offense and things is really in flux. But I think that Forte has enough juice to still
31.
give you. Yeah, I don't like old guys.
But the way he runs
enough.
is much more in the Frank Gore vein, where it's just a plodding, consistent, find a vein, get what's there. That's what Gore does.
Yeah, he was
Gore and Forte. They get what's available to them. Where a lot of running backs don't do that.
Right.
So
they want more. They're greedy.
Yeah.
Now
Maybe that's part of Gurley's problem last year, was feeling the pressure of doing too much, trying to break a long play, never getting what's
me
there.
of Jeremy Hill his second year.
just to
True.
go back for a second because we're not too far past it. I looked up the Tevin Coleman numbers. No, I
Sure.
just want to know
Yeah, no,
because
that's good.
he had 11 touchdowns. That seems high, especially in his short work. And like you brought up Jeremy Hill, he's the goal line back behind Gio.
Right.
He rushes inside the 10. Tevin Coleman this year had 11, which is, I mean, that's less opportunity than Alfred Blue and Chris Ivory and, Tim Hightower. And
Right.
I'm just saying it wasn't like he was.
What did Freeman have? No, he's not their main goal line back, but when they're on the goal line, they
Devonta
will.
Freeman had 30 inside the 10.
Well,
three times the amount of carries. Devonta Freeman's their goal line back.
Give me inside the 5 though.
All right.
Coleman missed 3 games and had half the total carries of Freeman on the year but was the 19th best running back.
Yeah, I don't think we're not arguing
No.
Coleman over Freeman, but he gets goal line carries, and so does Freeman.
Yeah, they both do. He
We're
gets
looking at
about 34% of snaps.
Freeman had 19 carries inside the 5. Coleman had 4.
Okay.
So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
The goal line back for Atlanta is Davante Freeman.
Sure.
Where are we?
Jeremy,
Jason
we're on
was-
Bilal Powell.
Bilal Powell.
Bilal Powell.
It's interesting to me that Matt Forte and Bilal Powell finished
Right,
next
back
to
to
each
back.
other. You know, it's
And
one of those.
one of them had 131 carries, the other one had 218 carries, and yet Bilal Powell had less than 100 rushing yards less than Matt Forte.
I have said this before. Bilal Powell reminds me of Justin Forsett, a guy who is really talented but always been behind the other backs. Bilal Powell is a little bit older. I think he's 29 years old. So he's not like he's a spring chicken, but his usage leaves him in a place where Justin Forsett was. If he got the opportunity, I think Bilal Powell would be great. But I agree with you, Mike. I think next year, coming into the year, it's still Forte's team. He's going to be the guy. So Bilal Powell's.
They need them both.
Yeah,
the split should
28
be more
years old,
even.
by the way.
28. Okay.
Yeah. So, Powell had a great year.
It's the draft position.
Offensive snap percentage was exactly 50% this year for Bilal Powell.
The draft position for Forte and Powell is going to be very interesting.
Yeah. That might be one of those situations where, it'll be
Just take
interesting
the
for
later
sure.
guy.
I think we got to wrap it up, guys. Do you have any final words? Anybody you want to mention real quick before we close it down?
Well, you have Jeremy Hill at 22. The offseason has already been extremely not positive for Jeremy Hill, as they've talked about, like their beat reporters saying he might be buried on the depth chart. Terrance West probably won't be back with the Ravens. It's a possibility, but he's a free agent. And then Johnny Stew. Let's talk Jonathan Stewart real quick, because he's one of these aging running backs. He still gets the workload though. Had to sit out for 3 games. The touchdowns were there though. Finally the touchdowns were there for Jonathan Stewart. 9 on the ground, which has not been the case lately with Cam Newton as the quarterback.
I expect we will be moving Jonathan Stewart down our draft boards, because I think almost assuredly to me, Carolina is going to spend a pick on a running back.
On a young stud.
You have to do that. Stewart, not only has he not been a pinnacle of health by any stretch, he'll be 30 when the season starts. And so we might not think of him that way, but he's about to set the franchise record for like total rushing yardage as a Panther. So for Stewart, they need another guy. I don't think it's Artis Payne, and it's not Fozzie Whitaker, and it's not Mike Tolbert. They need a frontline guy like a Fournette. They need to draft the next generation of running back, and what that might end up doing is putting you in a situation where you have, maybe it's like Latavius Murray. I mean, that might be the best example. He could still go out and put up 10 touchdowns.
Right.
But I don't think you're going to see the workload next year for Jonathan Stewart, and I don't think they want to give him that kind of workload. So that would be my take on Stewart. Maybe he belongs in that 24 range still, but I think they draft somebody, and we'll find out soon enough. So, lots going on next week. Mentioned it earlier. We got quarterback truth. We got tight end truth. And so that'll be a lot of fun. If you have,
I can tell you already that our quarterback truth episode is excellent. I already know that next week's episode is amazing.
that's true. We'll be out in Nashville, but the episodes will continue to magically appear in your pocket. We do appreciate your reviews on iTunes and wherever you're listening. They help support the show. So let us know what you think about the show. We really appreciate that. And you can find us on jointhefoot.com, our fantasy community, where you can join leagues with one another, where you get an extra episode that we're about to record. We answer, we have basically a mailbag episode just for jointhefoot.com supporters of this independent podcast, where we only answer your questions once a week on the Footcast, completely exclusive episode. And we do a lot of other fun stuff, access to special stats, information.
Those shows are so fun, especially this time of year.
Yeah, you can ask us literally anything you want. So it'll be a lot of fun. So thank you for listening to today's show. Show after the show coming up. Very interesting conundrum we'll be debating.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll leave it at that. You can check it out on YouTube.
Check out
over there.
FantasyJocks.com. The promo code is footballers because that's where the winners go, my friend. See you next time.
That's where I go.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.